Do you have the courage to think differently? I could remove the word differently and simply ask, do you have the courage to think, or are you being thought for? And when you do think, is it truly authentic? Because it's not just about being different. If everyone is right, I am like everyone else. But if everyone is wrong, then of course I will think differently. Sometimes there is such a profound need, such a deep need for acceptance, that if the crowd is heading toward the abyss, I will go with them, because I do not want to save myself alone. So we have this tendency to find comfort in thinking with the crowd. But it doesn't work that way. Because you give up your identity, you give up the chance to show the world who you truly are. In other words, it erases your opportunity to write your own story. Through thought, as Plato said. Everything is born in the realm of ideas before it manifests here. Everything is first born in thought, and only then in our concrete lives. Is it possible for us to do anything without first thinking about it? We know it is not. Everything originates in the realm of thought. In the realm of thought lies the foundation for what we will experience today and tomorrow. That is why it is so important for us to understand a little about it. We live in an era where thought is highly collective. We do not truly know what it means to construct our own thoughts. So I believe this is a valuable reflection for us to leave here contemplating it. What is it to think? Where does this word come from, and what does it truly signify? To think means to organize our thoughts according to two notions, to arrange our ideas. These two notions are a formal notion and a notion of content. Do you remember that children's toy with lots of little letters inside a box? And how the child begins to take those little letters and form words? We usually give this toy to a child when she is beginning to learn how to alphabetize right, so that she can start forming little words. And that's how it works. You have a multitude of symbols in your mind. What are words? What are letters? And you will combine these letters according to a formal pattern, which is our language. In other words, the form is the structure of our language. And the content, how do we organize it? Based on what? Of course, there must also be a reference point. Don't think that this isn't necessary. Our thinking is organized according to a reference. If we don't reflect and don't make choices, the reference comes from outside. It's whatever is in fashion, whatever everyone else thinks. When we make a conscious choice, this reference becomes internal. In general, what we recommend, and what has always been recommended, is that our thinking should be organized around universal ideas, of universal values such as justice, fraternity, kindness, love, and so on. All of these are human values. It is according to these that we should organize our thinking. So, for everything that supports these values, I express words of approval. For everything that rejects these values, I express words of disapproval. This would be the axis around which we should organize our thinking. You see, we really only have two options. Either we organize our thinking according to these human values, or we organize it according to animal values. Now, between us, animal values, which are simply survival and procreation, did they really require such a sophisticated linguistic pattern? All animals communicate by making noises, growls. The thrushes are all out there singing, calling to the females at this time. In other words, animals communicate in order to fulfill their instincts, making noises, emitting sounds, doing whatever it may be. They don't need such a refined pattern as language. The articulation of letters to form words, to form sentences, none of that is necessary. Simply by surviving and procreating, any sound would suffice. Of course, our language, and human languages in general. Human language is sophisticated because it was created to express sophisticated things. That is, to talk about justice, for example, you can't communicate with a grunt, nor with a whistle, and the same goes for talking about love. So I need an articulated language. This language, therefore, is articulated, it becomes more refined, as a result of the richness of human subjects, of what human beings have to express. If it were merely instinctive, sounds would be enough, more than enough. Animals have always managed with this perfectly well. So, form our language. Content, universal values. Human values valid today were valid 2,000 years ago and will continue to be valid thousands of years from now. Justice, fraternity, kindness, love, and other similar values. All of these are the qualities that define us as human beings. This is how we organize our thinking. Then we can say, this is a human being in the act of thinking. They organize their thoughts by a linguistic structure and their content by values. So this is the first element we need to understand. How is it, or how should it be? If I don't do this, the pattern by which I organize my thoughts, as I mentioned, becomes a collective pattern. It becomes what everyone else is thinking. It becomes whatever is currently in fashion. In that case, I'm not thinking, I'm echoing. This is not genuine thought. It is simply an echo. I am echoing whatever mental pattern is present at a given moment. I am merely reproducing. It's interesting to reflect, to delve into the intricacies of how the operation of thought truly works. You will notice how rarely we actually carry out this complete process. How often do we simply copy what we receive as information, day in and day out? How seldom do we truly develop our thoughts, starting from the birth of an idea, reflecting on the original idea itself, drawing consequences and conclusions that are genuinely our own, then applying those conclusions to our lives? The entire process belongs to you. This is something very rare. Pause and reflect. Of all the thoughts present in our minds now, how many originated as my own, original ideas? How many did I construct through a genuine process of reflection? Very few. Therefore, our mental capacity, our ability to think with clarity and integrity, is significantly impaired. This happens from the moment we do not know how to work with our own thoughts, from the very instant an idea is born, and it unfolds through the process of reflection. We will discuss this a bit more in a moment. So, continuing on, thoughts are motivated by both internal and external impulses. For example, I see someone here recording this lecture. I observe this, and from that observation, I can reflect. But I could also not see anyone at all. I could simply imagine a scene like this, internal impulse. I imagine that someone is recording, and based on that, I can also reflect. In other words, our reflections, which are the very workings of the thinking process. The rational operation, properly speaking, can arise from either external or internal events, from the moment we receive these impulses, whether internal or external, and begin to reflect. We start to exercise our thinking. For example, such a person does a certain thing. Why might that be? What is she seeking to achieve with this? Where does she want to go with this? Where is she heading? Does she know where she is going? What is her intention in acting this way? Do you realize how many interesting things there are around us? Things we could ask ourselves and reflect upon? There is something I find amusing. Today, when I came here, I thought about it. The number of people who rushed past you. Have you ever thought about it? Are they truly in a hurry? Is something very serious happening at their home? I remember once I was walking with my daughter. At the time, she was 9 or 10 years old. She said, "Mom, they should put a phone in the window so we could call and ask if it was time. Because it must be something very serious. It must be something from another world." You don't ask yourself about it. What is happening to this person? So much hurry to get where? Why? Why do people feel compelled to satisfy some instinct in this way? Why do they need to move faster than others? Is it simply to be greater than others by being faster? Is it their moment of fame? What are people seeking when they act this way? They take risks and put others at risk. And for what kind of gain? What is the benefit that comes from this? This is a philosophical stance. Why are things the way they are? We begin our reflection here, and from this reflection, we form our own ideas. I believe it is because people, all people, have a need to stand out at some point, to draw attention, to be the best, because they are tired of mediocrity, of being lost in the crowd doing the same things as everyone else, and not being recognized. So, in some way, people are seeking recognition in the strangest ways possible. Have you ever noticed someone when you overtake them in traffic with your car? When you look over, sometimes that person is looking at you like you've done something very serious, as if you've offended them just by overtaking them. as if you were saying they are behind, that they are beneath you. Then they press the accelerator and pass you, because this is a defeat she cannot accept when she gets home. Why do people need this? Why do we always feel the need to show others that we are better? From this, we could engage in a meaningful reflection. Try to understand what's truly happening to people, or at least develop your own hypothesis. What is really going on there? Are people feeling deeply mediocre? And do they feel the need to stand out in something? Why do they feel this way? All the things around us, the subtle workings of nature, cycle change, the arrival of spring, all that surrounds us, offers us valuable reflections. When we begin to reflect and draw from both external and internal events, our own ideas, that is when we are truly thinking, right there. And these personal ideas are not an absolute truth, but rather the best understanding you have reached so far, but they are yours, and that alone is of tremendous value. I have drawn from my observation of reality. A conclusion is my own. In other words, I have put my thinking into action. Without repeating others, I extract some conclusion from things. This is a process we should practice more and more, instead of absorbing ready-made ideas. Sometimes, when you go about your day, I don't know if this has ever happened to you. At some point, we look at an idea in our mind and ask ourselves, why do I believe in this? Then you start to reflect on it. You realize that it has no foundation, and yet you've held on to it for months. For years, believing in something like this. You never applied even a bit of logic to it. You never questioned it at all. You never put that idea to the test to see if it had any real foundation. And sometimes, if we're not careful, we keep believing in things like this for years, for a lifetime. Never questioned self, why believe this? But I believed because everyone else believed. So, there is a passage. Who here has already watched the Kybalion lecture? Just so I can get a sense. That's quite a few people. So you know what I'm talking about. There is a passage in the Kybalion, which is a book on the Egyptian principles, principles that explain life. One of these principles, it is the seventh, is the principle of gender. This principle of gender, it has a sub-principle, which is the mental gender. And this has everything to do with us. Let's talk about it here, because it fits perfectly in this moment. In this work, it says the following, that our mind, like everything in the world, has two genders. Within every human being, man or woman, and has two genders, the feminine and the masculine. What is the masculine aspect? It is that idea that is placed within our mind, that initial impulse, that first idea. And then comes the feminine mind, as if it were a womb which receives the idea and develops it, nourishing, developing it, until at a certain moment, this idea becomes a reality, comes into the world, and generates an action of yours. Simply put, this masculine and feminine mind is very interesting, including the author of the Kybalion. He often says that this is like a cuckoo's egg. Do you know this bird? The cuckoo is a very small animal with a little stick-like face. It simply goes to the nests of other birds, throws out their eggs, and lays its own egg. And the other bird stays there, incubating the egg. The cuckoo is a large bird, and sometimes the other is a small bird, incubating an egg no longer the right size. A huge bird is born. The other bird thinks, this is my child. I incubated it. Isn't that right? This phenomenon of mental gender is similar to that. I come to her and say, look, I think she doesn't like you. I don't know. It's an impression I got. Maybe I'm wrong. And then I leave. She doesn't see me. I'm going to Japan. But I planted an idea in her mind. Then she begins to nurture this idea. She walked past me and didn't greet me. And today, it seemed like she avoided looking at me. And today, she did something like that. She's developing. Give form to this idea. Soon, this will become a reality. It will end her relationship. She doesn't realize it. She'll think it's hers. She doesn't remember. Who was it who whispered it? Who planted the seed? Who sowed this idea? It was me. And as we nurture the idea, we believe this. But it is not. How often? How many times does this happen? How many times? More often than we imagine. When you walk down the street, in an open space, when you turn on radio, the television, when you're on the computer, Ideas are being cast out all the time. Some of them reach us without us even noticing. We absorb them and begin to develop them. We build an entire set of arguments around them, not realizing these are not our own ideas. This is a very common process of manipulation. That is to say, we only develop the feminine mind, the masculine mind. Someone has planted the seed in our mind, a thought that we believe is entirely our own. It is that the idea that was sown is yours, and the development of that idea is yours. So we could pause and ask ourselves, how did this idea begin? Who put this thought in my mind? Sometimes you pinpoint the exact moment when someone planted that seed, some event or statement, and then you realize that wasn't me. So, this is a very common process of manipulation. We are constantly receiving seeds, and it happens all the time. Wrong ideas, tendencies, manipulations designed to make you buy things, to make you believe in certain candidates, to make you do certain things, to adopt certain habits in your life. This happens constantly. And often you have no idea that these are not your own ideas. If I ask you what you think about life, I do not exclude the possibility that if I ask you what you think about life, perhaps out of 10 ideas you mention, 7 have been implanted by someone else, and they are not truly yours. It's astonishing, but that's how it is. If we pause to look honestly at our mental landscape, we will see how few ideas are truly our own. It applies to the male mind and the female mind, and this is something we must observe so that we can begin to genuinely think entirely from within ourselves, learn to practice the art of thinking, and become the true owners of our ideas, because this is fundamental, even if our ideas are mistaken, even if they need to be refined. But I am the one who created this idea. Now I will walk with it. I will help it to mature, because I drew it from my life experience. This is fundamental. Continuing on, external impulses. We see that things are, or rather, the version that interests us. This is another matter. I hope you are very aware of this, because this is a tendency of thought that exists in our historical moment, but it has existed for a long time. Immanuel Kant spoke about this. Today it's once again fashionable to discuss it. What is this idea? That the world does not exist as such. The world is a creation of the human mind. Have you ever heard of this? It would be a projection of the human mind. So it is as if we were, all of us, wearing virtual glasses, imagining things. And the world around us does not exist. There are people wearing virtual glasses. Many people believe in this. Immanuel Kant originated this idea. Later, other philosophers developed it further. Many people today defend this idea. Between us, it is pretentious on the part of human beings. If not them, nothing would exist. That it is his mind that constructs things, recognized before hominids existed. That is, in other words, the very first human being, the original person. That is, the first hominid. That is, our first ancestor. The universe was already there, and it existed without a single human being. Do you think if the human species ceased to exist, the planets, the suns, the galaxies, would they cease to exist? Do they exist only as a function of our mind? This is at least quite presumptuous. I believe that things exist in and of themselves, regardless of human opinion. But why do we so often have these ideas? That the universe does not exist, that truth does not exist, that it is merely a mental creation of ours? Because the way we look at things, we do not see things as they truly are. As you might have noticed, we see what interests us. Pay attention to this. It's like that song by Caetano Veloso. Narcissus thinks ugly what is not a mirror. Do you remember? I fragment the reality around me and only see one angle of reality, that which can serve my interests. So if a person passes by me, generally in society, if this person has no material wealth, has no fame, has no real physical beauty, does not meet my interests, I do not even see her. In other words, it is as if she were invisible. There is a case that once circulated on the internet, so I looked into it and realized that it was true. And then I went to a university in one of the southern states. I do not remember which one now. He took a sabbatical leave. That is, he stepped away from the university, took a job in the city's urban cleaning system of his city to work as a janitor on the campus where he used to teach. This was the experiment he conducted. He cut his hair, put on a uniform, and went to work there. For a while, I do not know exactly how long, but in his account he said that no one recognized me. Do you know why no one recognized me? Because no one looks at the janitor. What interest could a janitor offer you? What does he have to offer you? Nothing, so he becomes invisible. No one looked me in the face. A janitor is like a door, like a wall. No one looks at the person's face because it does not matter at all. There is no interest you can gain from it. So they become invisible. The name of the text is Public Invisibility. That was the conclusion he reached. It is very thought provoking. We truly fragment reality, and we only see what interests us. There is a saying by a Russian writer, Leo Tolstoy, who says, "Some walk through a forest and see firewood. Imagine yourself from the entire universe of life that exists within a forest. What can meet my needs? I have a fireplace at home. I need firewood. So I look at the forest and see firewood, the life there, the entire ecosystem. I do not care. How will this serve me? I see nothing outside my personal interests." So we fragment reality. It is as if we looked at things with a very low-powered lantern. That is the lantern of our interests. It only illuminates what people have. That can be of some use to us. We do not see the rest. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, I will not go into much detail about it, but in the allegory of the cave, he says that the only thing that can serve us is to see the things that we see. It is the same thing in the cave. When people leave the prison of that cave, the cave where they live, which is based on illusions, they see things illuminated by the idea of the good. That is, instead of illuminating things with the lantern, you illuminate them with sunlight, which is equivalent to the idea of good. Then you see things in their entirety. Do you know what it means to look at things illuminated by the idea of good? It is when you look at someone and think, what can I do for this person? For this object, for this animal, that can benefit them, that can guide them toward their own good, without wanting anything for myself. This is illuminating things by the idea of good. How can I intervene in a way that brings this being closer to their own good, without wanting anything for myself, without any personal interest? When I look at things this way, I see them for what they truly are. Imagine that you want to open up to a friend. You are feeling distressed and need someone to confide in. Would you confide in someone who might manipulate what you say? No, you would confide in someone who genuinely wants what is good for you. Don't you think that nature knows this? Do you think she is naive? She knows it. And she will not open up to someone who wants to manipulate her. She will only open up to the one who truly desires her well-being. And then she opens up and she reveals her heart. And this person who looks at things with a selfless gaze begins to perceive the very essence of things. Do you see? Do you understand that? Well, only begin to see things as they truly are. When we are able to set aside our personal interests, our desires, and look at things while recognizing their own right to exist, to see them for themselves, not because I want to take something from them, not because they fulfill some need of mine, to look at things without any self-interest, without desire, without wanting to take advantage of them in any way. If we can bring this to zero, which is what a philosopher from the last century named Sri Ram called, he said that this is pure vision, it is purity, to look at things with zero desire, to look and wish to see the good in them. Then you will truly see things, and you will be amazed, because those people you always walked past, you will realize they are completely different from what you imagined. You will see that they are something else entirely. Even animals will begin to perceive the world in a much richer way. because we are no longer looking only at that narrow slice, illuminated by the lantern of our interests. We are looking at the fullness of beings. Why is that? Because we do not wish to use them, nor do we want to manipulate them, and only then can we break free from our bubble of illusions and begin to truly see things. Can you imagine living for years beside someone and never truly seeing them in their entirety? Never. You will never be able to see that person completely, to see her as she truly is, to see her dreams, to know where she would like to go, to understand what her true needs are, without any self-interest in it, without seeking any personal gain from it, simply for her sake. Only then would we begin to see the things around us with zero desire, with zero personal interest. That is when a pure thought begins to emerge. If you did this and were able to truly see things, you would perceive the truth of things. There is a truth to the universe that would still exist even if we did not. If you were in the Middle Ages conducting public opinion research, a kind of medieval polling, you would ask people what the shape of the earth is. What do you think they would answer? Flat. At the edge, a dragon, mouth open, waits for the unimaginable, right? That's what they believed. Do you think the Earth stopped being a geoid because of that? The Earth exists regardless of what people think or stop thinking. It possesses a truth. It is what it is. What we can achieve is either to see this truth or not. But it does have a truth. The importance lies in perceiving the truth of things, to love the truth, to desire to attain it. When someone says, "I love the truth," this is a tremendous virtue because it means they want to see things as they truly are, without instincts veil, without the veil of their interests and desires. Is it common today for people to love the truth? At the beginning of the conversation, people do not even believe that truth exists. If you say this to people, they will respond, "Everyone has their own truth." How can that be? If each person thinks of the earth in a different way, does the earth change its shape? How does that work? There is no truth in itself. Everyone has theirs. How is that possible? It's curious, because even if you convince this person that there is a truth, even then, he will not want to know. He will prefer his own version, or maybe not. That's how it is. Imagine the following situation. You lost your wallet here at school. Then you were at the reception, registering yourself. So you think you lost it there at the reception. You go to look for it. But I saw you walking around this room. I come to look here, and I find your wallet. I return it to you. You'll be happy since you got your wallet back. Or will you be upset with me because I contradicted your belief that it was at the reception? It's ridiculous, isn't it? The wallet holds a lot of value for me. I would rather find the wallet than have my opinion be right, but that's because it's a wallet. And we are very materialistic, because if it were a concept about life, even if you realized that yours was wrong, you would rather not discover the truth about life than admit that her concept is better than yours. Why is that? Because you are not as invested in concepts about life as you are in a wallet. So you would rather find nothing at all, just to defend your own opinion, because you won't allow it to appear that she knows more than you do. We must be interested in the truth above all else, believing that it exists and that it has value, curious, eager to discover things as they truly are in themselves and not as they appear through the filter of my own interests, loving things for what they are in themselves. That is what a philosopher believed. The one who lets their thoughts flow, who seeks the truth, wants to delve into the very heart of all things. Let us pause to consider what we truly know. Of course, none of us is a sage. We don't know everything, not even close. But we ought to know something. What is it that we truly know? What or whom? Not even ourselves, truly. So this estrangement from truth prevents us from having a complete thought. At a certain point, our emotions say, "Stop with this and prove that I am right." Then you distort the entire line of reasoning. You perform a mathematical operation. In the end, I am right and the other is wrong. So you begin to distort all the equations. The flow of thought becomes completely twisted because you have already predetermined the outcome. Prove that I am right. You twist things around. Oh, that's not true. I don't care. I'm not even seeking the truth. As long as I win, that's all that matters. My version is far more important than any truth that exists. Notice how difficult it is to think in these terms. A complete, honest, and pure mental process. That brings you closer to the truth of things, cannot be manipulated in this way. This is yet another factor that prevents us from thinking properly. Let us continue. Even if there is an internal vision, is it really what defines our thinking? Let us imagine the following. I observe all the people I have known throughout my life. I take a look, more or less, with some perspective, at all the people I have known throughout my life. And I come to the following conclusion. Of the people I have met, I can say that about 95% or more were good people. They were not extraordinary or perfect people, but they were people present with their families, seeing their loved ones, not wanting to harm anyone. They did not strive to be highly altruistic, but they were good people. Less than 5% were individuals who were truly criminal, marginal, or involved in serious wrongdoing. The majority of the people I have met were good people throughout my life. Then you pick up today's newspaper. You go online. You look at all the means of communication. And what do they tell you? That humanity is a failed project. Isn't that so? Humanity has no path forward, no solution. Everywhere in media, in every corner, you pick up a newspaper, it will show you and tell you that humanity has no way out. Humanity is a project that didn't work out. I've seen this exact phrase in the newspaper. Humanity is a failed project. So then you form an opinion. They're saying that 100% of humanity is useless, but my own experience throughout my life tells me that 95% of people are good and valuable. So what do I choose to believe? Do I choose what the media says, assuming they must know more than I do? Isn't that right? My own idea, developed from my life experience, considered worthless because I can't be more right than the newspaper. The people who produce the newspaper must know things. So I end up abandoning my own perspective, even though it is guided by my own reflection, especially when it goes against collective thinking, when it goes against what is fashionable to think. That is, even if I think for myself, even if I develop my own reasoning, I lack the courage to stand by it, against all odds. Take a moment to reflect, everyone. I am willing to wager all my little tokens. Which are good tokens? Let's say, at some point, you looked at some event in society and thought, this person isn't crazy. No, this just doesn't make sense. What a strange thing. But that's fine. You started to accept that idea, just like everyone else, got used to hearing it and left it at that. But it never happened. When you saw some news, saw someone reporting that someone was taking action, some event. This whole thing is kind of crazy, isn't it? What a situation, but it just doesn't add up. But people get used to hearing it and leave it at that. Has this ever happened to you? Sometimes logic, our common sense tells us, this whole thing makes no sense at all. But then you see everyone talking about it so naturally that you let it go. This is the first impression. It is a very valid first impression. It is usually grounded in common sense, in a personal reflection. Very valid. You leave it at that because everyone else is saying the opposite. Or isn't it like that? It is like that. Recently, I was there. Last year, I had the opportunity to travel and go to India, where I spent some time. And you should know, today, India is the most populous country in the world. It surpassed China. 1.4 billion human beings. And a situation of extreme poverty, extreme misery. Then suddenly I pick up the newspaper, and India has a project. They sent a spacecraft to the dark side of the moon. Look at that. Do people think India has money for that? Doesn't this seem out of place? Given the state in which their population lives, they are building a spaceship. It's a very strange situation. At first, your common sense tells you, this doesn't seem right. Soon you forget, amazed, that they went to the other side of the moon, How impressive, and you move on. How many times do we abandon our own common sense? Just because everyone else is saying it, because the press is saying it, what the media is endorsing, seems to have more value than our own life experience. This is remarkable that we experience such a lack of self-confidence, such a lack of self-affirmation. We are unable to say what no one else wants to hear. We are unable to voice an opinion that goes against the crowd. If everyone is saying A, I won't say B. I'll say A as well. It's much easier, much more comfortable. Imagine me standing up in the middle of this crowd and saying, humanity has a path and most people are good. I won't do it. Everyone would throw stones at me. It's better to think like everyone else. It's safer this way. How many times do we act like this? That is, when we reflect, we sabotage our own thinking process because we don't believe in ourselves. We think we lack the ability to assert our opinions to others, as if others possessed great knowledge. In reality, the collective, if we conduct research, people, throughout history, what the masses believed, in general, was not correct. In the Middle Ages, and in several historical periods, you will notice what was fashionable to think then. You will see that it was not the truth. A man appeared there, a Galilean of life, and by himself declared none of it was true. The masses were thinking in a completely mistaken way. Is it any different today? Are collective opinions truly reliable for the first time in history? Is it not worth trusting yourself more? Look, I believe it's worth it. It is worth considering. When your common sense flags and tells you, this situation is not good, trust that. Take it seriously. This means you are thinking. You have your own ideas. Do not sabotage this process. This is fundamental. This is what shapes us as individuals. This is our well-guided process of thinking. Thinking for yourself requires courage. And this is the process I am describing to you. Many times, it is fear. If I think for myself, I will be different from everyone else. People will reject me, will criticize me. But look, if everyone began to follow this example and think independently, some people would have to accept that every human being has an opinion. Every human sees through their own experience and would stop trying to impose collective opinions. Marcus Aurelius, who was a great man, who was a great philosopher, a Stoic emperor, he said the following: every human being who dies impoverishes me, because it means the loss of a unique and unrepeatable universe with which I have ceased to make contact. Imagine each one of you as an unrepeatable universe, each one thinking for themselves, having their own ideas. Imagine how wonderful humanity would be with so many people thinking. We opened our hands to this and placed a citizen there, having ideas while everyone else copies. In other words, instead of having thinking beings, we have beings who merely clone thoughts on the mental plane. They have no ideas of their own. The true wealth is in 7 billion human beings, almost 8 billion. All of them thinking, all of them having ideas. That would be wonderful. It probably would have solved most of humanity's problems. But no, we keep putting one person to think and the rest to copy. Someone will have to have the courage to start thinking. And to sustain that, it is a right that belongs to all of us. Even if you do not share your thoughts in the newspaper, you must uphold them for your own conscience. Continuing. Circular thinking. This is also something we need to begin to understand. How the mental mechanism works, the mechanism of our thoughts. Sometimes our emotions, and in fact, many times, our emotions, they weigh down our thoughts with tremendous force. When you are hurt by someone, when you are angry, when you feel offended, or when you are in love, your thinking becomes circular. That same idea keeps spinning around you all day long. And if you keep feeding it, it can persist for a long time. This can become pathological. It can turn into an obsession, an obsessive thought. And it's amazing, friends, how exhausting this is. Because this is extremely exhausting. A single day spent in circular thinking, you will notice it tires you out more than a day of hard physical labor because it drains our mental energy. We need to learn how to break the cycle of circular thinking. We need to know how to master our thoughts, at least to some extent. And that brings me to the proposal I want to share with you. We may be living in the period of history when we are most scattered. Do I doubt that? Do you have any doubts about that? There are many things that capture our attention, and we do not know how to choose. And we do not know how to focus on just one thing at a time. We are everywhere, and yet we are nowhere. If I ask you to think only about this object for 30 seconds, no other thought, just this object, you will see exactly what I mean. You will understand what I am talking about. It's a little twirl of ideas in our minds, a whirlwind, and we do not hold on to anything. We have nothing left. We don't go deeper further. We live in a very scattered time, and with very little capacity for concentration. This is a serious issue that prevents us from delving deeply into anything. This lack of control means we are unable to generate inner silence. That allows us to go deeper into anything. Do you think that anyone who accomplished something significant in the history of humanity had a scattered mind, ending with many thoughts? Leonardo da Vinci paints Mona Lisa lost in his thoughts. Would the Mona Lisa have turned out as it did? It would have been a mediocre work. That is what he would have created. Mozart composing his music while thinking about 1,000 things at the same time. Would he have accomplished the work he did? No, it would have been mediocre. Can you imagine anyone creating something of true quality when they are not focused on what they are doing and are thinking about 1,000 things at once? Someone producing something of value. Under these circumstances, what you will get is mediocrity, superficiality. The mind is like light. If you focus this light to a certain degree, you will have something like a laser beam, which is able to penetrate things, to reveal the mysteries within them. Anyone who has accomplished something of such quality that it is remembered in history was a person who knew how to concentrate. They possessed at least a basic ability to master their own thoughts. If you look at methods of Eastern meditation, they all say the same thing. The ability to control your thoughts is the starting point for you to be able to engage in a process of deep reflection so that you can begin to understand your own mechanisms of imagination, intuition, inspiration. These qualities arise when you cultivate a certain mental silence, because without it, you can't perceive anything. Creative individuals, imaginative individuals, intuitive individuals possess a degree of mental control because without it, they cannot function. Even if an idea arises, they do not notice it. That is why, today, it is so rare to find someone with above average imagination. It is so rare for someone to be inspired to create things that are truly exceptional. He cannot focus his mind on anything. Have you ever noticed something interesting? When we are engaged in something more or less repetitive, and we pay attention to that activity. For me, it's washing dishes. Washing dishes is wonderful for me because when you focus on the dishes, you step away from those circular thoughts. You are focused on washing the dishes, and you continue with that simple task. Soon, a line of poetry will emerge. Soon, a wonderful idea for a lecture will come to mind. I almost need to wash the dishes with a notepad beside me, because it seems that this mechanical activity, when I focus there, brings a quietness to my thoughts. And then, when my mind settles, these drops of higher things begin to fall. A bit of inspiration, a touch of imagination. These things begin to speak, and I listen. Because my mind is there, more or less focused on a single thing. Sometimes while driving, hasn't that ever happened to you? Driving is a time a great idea can come. If you don't stop and write it down, you lose it. Often, during these repetitive actions, wonderful ideas arise that we must learn to appreciate. Because it's a moment when we are, in a way, controlling the mind, focused on one thing, and then it's doing something else. Rhythmic repetition. You can welcome inspiration, sense intuition, because it's as if your intuition is up there saying, "Hey, create a little silence so you can listen to me for a moment." So you go and sweep the house. Perfect, now your mind is focused on the broom. Let it be. It's like that. It's fascinating. Those who practice any form of art know what this is like. Those wonderful ideas emerge at that very moment. For anyone doing imaginative work, this is exactly how it happens. These are the moments when imagination finds the opportunity to manifest in your life, because our minds are often so undisciplined. Therefore, practice concentration exercises. Strive to gain greater mastery over your thoughts. There is an exercise we use frequently here at the school, which is called Trotak. Trotak involves focusing on a small dot at the center of a circle. The idea is to focus your gaze on this small dot, concentrate on dot, even if only for a few seconds. With such focus that the surrounding circle fades away, you no longer see it. You might say, I'm not going to walk around with a piece of paper, with a dot, with a point in the middle, algae lob. That'd be ridiculous. You don't need to do that. You're in the doctor's office waiting room, waiting to be called. Might notice a dot on the wall. That works as well. Try an exercise where you focus so intently that you see only that point. Even if just for a few seconds, you are engaging in an exercise to strengthen your mental muscles, to gain mastery over your thoughts. When you sit down to concentrate on reading, you will notice the benefits of exercises like this. We must continually strive to achieve a higher level of concentration. We must resist this distraction, a widespread social problem. It robs us of our ability to think more deeply. All of us are affected by this. Have you ever visited the UNB library? I find it quite amusing because they set up these cubicles. At least, that's how it was in my day. I think it's still the same now. Goose for students. You sit inside that wooden cubicle to study. It's not meant for anything else. But what do people end up doing? They write all sorts of things in the cubicle. Then someone else arrives instead of studying. They read what was written there. How fascinating. There is always a way for your attention to wander. There always is. That's why practicing deeper concentration is so important. It is absolutely necessary if you want to deepen your thinking. To truly cultivate the art of thinking for yourself, let's continue. Separate your emotions from your thoughts. This is extremely important. Thought is cool and detached. It has the capacity to construct arguments, and at a certain point to discern what is right, what is good, and what is the correct thing to do. But if you allow your thoughts to be influenced by emotions, you will not think about what is good, what is fair, or what is right. You will only think about what pleases you. Take, for example, parents and their children. When a child misbehaves, you know you should not punish them while you are irritated. You will act unfairly. That's why you need to let your mind cool down, so you can consider what is best for the child. In order to educate them, you can go and do what's truly good for the child. If we allow our thoughts to be contaminated by emotions, they disrupt the logic of our reasoning. Emotions distort reality, whether through passion or anger. They undermine our ability to think clearly and correctly. You have probably heard of a great philosopher from the past. Who was Plato? A key figure in the history of humanity. He was a profound thinker. There is a story that once, a child in Plato's household did something very wrong. We do not know exactly what it was. It is said that this child betrayed him. This was someone who had lived in his home for many years, someone he deeply trusted, and this person betrayed that trust. So Plato left his house and went to his school, to the academy, and brought his closest confidant, saying, "Go there and judge this person for me, because in the emotional state I am not able to judge anyone." Notice that even Plato had his moments of emotional turmoil, but his attitude is truly admirable. In this emotional state, I will not judge anyone, because when I'm offended, I am not fair. Go there, you who have a clear and calm mind, and judge in a way that is truly fair to him. Give him what is best, what suits him, what truly fits him. Do you understand? So be very careful, because one of the elements that distorts our ability to think is mixing emotion with thought. When you think you need a clear, calm mind, emotions are to be used later to drive your actions. But when deciding, when it comes to reflecting, You must have a mind that is calm and detached from emotions. Otherwise, you will not be able to reflect properly. Learning from another person's thinking does not mean simply copying it. I examine the foundations and put my own values to the test. I renew them. As I told you, just because everyone thinks the same, it cannot be that way. You might ask, is it wrong to learn from someone else's thinking? No, it's not wrong. We learn from the thoughts of many people, from the great sages of the past, from admired people, from those we share our lives with. We can indeed learn from the thoughts of others, but you must take their thought and subject it to your own values. Imagine how it would function in your life. You recreate this thought within yourself because you have submitted it to your own logic, to a set of values that are uniquely yours. You reflect on how it works in practice and observe what truly works. It's yours. You have recreated this thought. I did not simply copy the package. I did not just take the software and run it exactly the same way. No. I took this idea and subjected it to my own values and my worldview. I came to the conclusion that this was truly fundamental. The great thinkers of the past, such as Plato, none of them appreciated disciples or students who merely copied them. They valued students who truly understood them, those who were able to take these ideas, bring them into their own world, subject them to their own examination, to their own reflection, and arrive at conclusions from that, their own conclusions. Why do we offer a philosophy course? Bring you here. Instead of just sending you home to read Plato? Precisely because everyone who studies Plato has the capacity to recreate this in their own life, and we add elements that you would not have at home. Do you understand? This is the teacher's role. Why else go to school? You would just stay at home and read the book. But the teacher recreates this within themselves. Using their worldview from their own values, they recreate history. They add the understanding that they have gained so that you can understand it more deeply. If they don't do this, they will not exist as a teacher. If the teacher does not recreate the teaching in their own life, he will cease to exist as a professional, because then, artificial intelligence, the Google of life, will eventually replace it. What artificial intelligence will never be able to do is to live the teachings. A teacher does this. If they don't do this, they will be replaced. So, the thinking of another is recreated, not just copied. You can and should learn from everyone. This thought forms in you. It is subject to your own reflection. It is not just copied, ready-made, and set to run. Be careful with many things. Thinking the same way. If a lot of people are thinking the same, what do you think is really happening? Most likely one person is really thinking, and the rest are just copying. No doubt about it. If everyone were truly thinking, you would have a vast diversity of opinions. Take Brazil, for example, 200 million people. 100 million thinking like X, 100 million thinking like Y. There are so many people thinking in just one way. There are so many people. There is no chance everyone will think alike. The probability is extremely high. Imagine if all of you were truly thinking for yourselves, exchange ideas mutually. How much could we grow as a community? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. I share with you what I am thinking. You share with me what you are thinking. We identify the common ground and create a synthesis. This synthesis learns from my view and your view, and it becomes greater. It adds more to our collective understanding. This is how we grow together. If we remain open-minded, and do not see ourselves as the sole owners of the truth. Every time you meet someone who thinks differently, you become enriched, and so do they, because I will learn from another's point of view, and they will learn from mine. Together we'll have a synthesis greater than what we thought before. It is broader, it is higher, but how did we achieve that? Because everyone was thinking for themselves. If everyone were copying others' thoughts, there would be nothing to change, nothing to learn from one another. Be cautious if many people think the same way. Most likely, no one is truly thinking at all. Reflect, subject yourself to principles, and construct your own thoughts. Is that absolutely correct? I did everything you taught, Lucy. I took a fact that I observed in my life. I reflected on it. And I came to the conclusion that, so far, at this moment in my life, I believe that this is right. It's the best I have ever seen. But is that the absolute truth? No. We live in a world where there are no absolutes. It is a world of relativity. This is the best thought I have had so far. But if tomorrow someone brings me a new perspective, then tomorrow I will take this new element into consideration. I am not rigid. I am consistent with the best synthesis I have reached so far, but I do not possess any ultimate truth. Notice that those who do not have the habit of thinking, those who are set in their ways, who do not like to think or are reluctant to think, usually feel secure relying on ready-made ideas, on dogmas, on rigid beliefs, and they feel safe because they believe there is a truth there. Usually, those who reflect feel secure, precisely because they know they are a work in progress. That if something new emerges, they will grow, and when something else new arises, they will grow again. The security of a philosopher, for example, is knowing that he is a work in progress, that he does not possess anything as his own. Healthful with life. Learn to feel secure in this way. What do I have? The best I have ever had. Is it absolute truth? Of course not. This is not a world of absolutes. One of the worst things Plato spoke about this. The worst thing for those who wish to learn is to believe they already know. They will not learn anything further. The greatest obstacle to learning is thinking you already know. You stop seeing anything new. You stop absorbing anything else. The spirit of a learner. We all must cultivate this. A spirit of constant learning, recognizing that we do have something. It may not be much, but it is what we have. We have our worldview, which is the best we have achieved so far. We are not empty, but we are always seeking to learn a little more. This is fundamental. A society where all are like this, with the spirit of a learner, they encounter something different, they can integrate it, to learn from it. What would humanity be like? The worst enemy of learning is to think that you already know, as I mentioned to you. Rigid thinking can turn into fanaticism and prejudice. That is, this is the truth. I have the truth. It's complicated, my dear. If you think you possess the truth, then others are either with you or against you. And inevitably, you will develop prejudice against others. In other words, when you close your mind, you begin to harbor bias and prejudice. That is fanaticism. That is simply the freezing of the thinking process. I no longer reflect. I've already found the final point of my life. It is sad to say that you have already found the final point of your life. What will you do with the rest of your life? My dear, if you are not looking for wisdom anymore, now seeking truth, what will you do with the rest of your life? Be very careful with rigid thinking, with dogmatism. They'll cause bias. They will lead to the exclusion of others. They will create a process in which we learn nothing from anyone. We all become frozen. Let me give the example of a boxer. You notice that when a boxer strikes his opponent, the first thing he does is strengthen his legs. He strengthens his legs, then makes a move. Isn't that right? We strengthen our thinking, preparing it to attack those who think differently. That's it. He strengthened my foundations. This is true. It becomes highly aggressive. Soon, he is attacking someone who thinks differently. And he feels like the owner of all the reasons in the world. How often does this happen? Differences of all kinds. Discrimination of all kinds. What is it, if not a group of people who believe they own the truth? Have you ever seen a bullfight? Two bulls butting heads until both fall dead. This is a battle between those who claim to own the truth. There is no kind of learning from one another. There is no possibility for growth. Those who believe they own the truth are generally very aggressive people. They exclude everyone around them. As I told you, dialectics is made up of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. I have found someone who thinks differently. How wonderful! Now I am going to start learning. I offer all I have. Let me see what you have to offer. I'll be in your place. Let me try to understand the world from your point of view. You're seeing things from an angle I've never seen. So you will give me a new perspective. I will learn something from you. And you can learn from me as well if you are open to learning. In other words, Today I leave greater than when I arrived, because I met someone who thought differently. Look how beautiful that is. Today I grew because I met someone who thought differently. These are people who are truly thinking. They are practicing the art of thinking and genuinely seeking the truth. These true seekers who exist scattered throughout the universe. I am searching for them. I truly want to expand my thinking. All rigid thinking is a cage through which intelligence and common sense cannot pass. Rigid thinking confines you, and you can no longer allow your thinking to flow. The desire to think is like the desire to live. So these are some final reflections I would like to share with you. And I ask you to reflect on what has been said. Develop the ability to look within your own mind to see which ideas truly belong to you. Cultivate the ability to trust your life experience, your own reflections. Practice a bit of concentration so you can have a certain mastery over your thoughts. Believe in yourself, even if the whole world says otherwise. When this is well established, when you have truly reflected on it, make use of this wonderful ability, the marvelous capacity of the human being, which is to think. To know how to exercise thought means, I've learned how to live. I have begun to conquer my individuality, my unique and unrepeatable place in the world. Each of us has a message to share with the world, something that, if I do not say it, no one else will say it for me. When you learn to think, you claim your place in the world. Offer your contribution, one that no one else but you can give. Uncover the mystery that brought us into the world. What message have we come here to share? Each of us must discover this sacred word, this mystery that we are meant to communicate to the world. And don't forget